Alright, today we're going to talk about Undiscovered Country. This is created by quite the hefty team. It was written by Scott Snyder and Charles Soule. It has layouts by Giuseppe Camunculi. I'm probably going to butcher a lot of these names. And it has finishes by Daniele Orlandini and Leonardo Marcello Grassi. It's colored by Matt Wilson, lettered by Crank, and edited by Will Dennis. This is a creator-owned book by Scott Snyder and Charles Soule, published by Image, and the book has been hyped for quite a while. All of the promotional material leading up to it made it sound like it was going to be the next big book. And yeah, okay, I know that's pretty common PR, and most comics are going to be hyped as like the next big thing, but the way this was being treated made it sound like this was what is replacing The Walking Dead as Image's current big top-tier title. Like, Walking Dead finished, and Saga isn't currently running, so they needed their big main title, and Undiscovered Country was going to be that title. I can give in to hype a bit if I know a lot of people who are just telling me how good something is. That might hype me up, but if it's advertising and PR, then I usually am quite wary of that kind of hype. So, going into this, I was a bit curious of why they were hyping this one up so much as opposed to a lot of their other books, but I generally like Scott Snyder, and I like pretty much everything I've read from Charles Soule, so I figured if any book would have the chance of living up to the hype, it would probably be this one. That being said, the basic premise, while interesting, didn't really excite me. And the basic idea behind the story is that America builds walls around their borders and completely shuts themselves off from the rest of the world. And the country is like this for the next 100+ years. They invite a small group of people in from the outside world to come to America under the pretense of offering them a cure to a deadly disease that is plaguing the world. Knowing Scott Snyder's work with American Vampire, and then the depth of Charles Soule's work in a lot of things like Swamp Thing or his novel Oracle Year, I felt like these were two writers who could work together and create something interesting, and the setup did sound like something that the two would work on together, so it at least had the potential to be good. Still though, the basics of the premise didn't really excite me and strike me as something to get excited about. If this was written by someone like, say, Brian Wood, who did amazing work on DMZ, I feel like there would have been a lot of potential for me to get excited about it, because I know how good he is with political situations and strong characterization. But yeah, I'm belaboring the point now. Really what I'm trying to say is there's nothing about the premise that really drew me in, it's more the creative team. And right away, I have to say, it's okay. Personally, it really doesn't live up to the hype. There is enough here that is interesting and unusual, and I feel like has a lot of potential, but for this first story arc, it fails to really sell me fully on the idea. They introduce a decent cast of characters, but not a single one of them really stands out to me or really grasps me. They show America as this really strange and unusual place now after the 100+ years of isolation. And yet, nothing of what they present really sells me on, okay, this is a very compelling place and has a lot of story potential. It more feels like they're throwing out unusual situations and unusual characters and whatnot for the sake of it being strange and foreign. And this book does run into one of the issues that I have with Scott Snyder, namely that he tends to be very, very dialogue heavy, to the point that the story gets really bogged down in the dialogue a lot of the time. And comics are a visual medium, and I feel like Snyder often loses that in that he relies so heavily on dialogue to tell the story, when I feel like he should rely a bit more on the visualization. Now, this first story arc does a decent job of setting up the world and the situation, and it gives you a bit of time each issue or each chapter with the different characters so that you kind of get a feel for the cast and you kind of know everybody involved. And so this first story arc, this first volume, is very much set up, and it starts to explore some of the complexities of the characters and the uncertainty of the situation that they're in. But it never really gives you a solid footing for what to expect going forward. And that may be one of the points that they're going for. I mean, the title of the book is Undiscovered Country. So one of the central themes of the book could be the mystery and the unexpectedness of what lies ahead. But as it is, I never felt like I had a really solid connection with any of the characters, or even necessarily a strong grasp of what the book is going to be like going forward. I think one of the best analogies I can make for this first trade is it feels like the start of a roller coaster where you're going up the hill and you have kind of an idea of what the track is like, but you don't really see the rest of it. And the closer you get to the top of that hill, the less you see until all you see is sky and you're at the very top and you're about to drop, and that's the end of the first trade. Now, granted, they do throw in a lot of weirdness and a lot of different things to kind of give you a sense that this world is very different from what you might expect. And that weirdness is definitely on full display here in the first trade, but they give a very strong sense that that is really just the tip of the iceberg, and it is only now as we start really exploring America that you're going to get the full scope of just how strange everything has become and just how much the world has changed in such a relatively short time. There are a number of different elements that are introduced that could only exacerbate that. Unfortunately for me, I found it difficult to connect with a lot of it, and it kind of felt more like they're just throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks. And so I feel like there are a number of elements that were introduced in this volume that might not really come back or really have a lot of relevance as they journey forward. So a bit of it feels like it's weirdness for the sake of weirdness. And it may well be that by the time I read Volume 2 and Volume 3, that I become accustomed to it and it becomes normal for the series. And so I could see that weirdness becoming almost endearing in a way. As it is right now, a lot of it's kind of off-putting, not like in a way that I find disturbing per se, just that it feels a bit nonsensical. Like why are they including this weird thing? Like, for instance, there's this image that I'm going to put up on the screen here of this battle station, this building that is mobile and is getting pulled along by different vehicles and creatures. And one of the creatures in this particular image is basically a giant baby. And it seems like the giant baby only exists to pull this mobile battle station, and there's no other purpose for it. So there's no story explanation, there's no development of it, it's just kind of there. And now that I'm talking about this, it occurs to me that I might enjoy that absurdity more in a different kind of book, but so much of this story is presented in a very serious manner that those more unusual and goofy elements kind of clash with the theme and the tone of the book. And overall, I would say that I definitely did enjoy the book. It just didn't really grip me and make me feel like I really wanted to come back for more. I am curious to see where the story is going, and based off of the way the story progressed and the way this first volume ended, I feel like Volume 2 is being set up to be much better. So I will definitely be coming back for Volume 2. And I do think it is an interesting book, and it is worth reading. I just don't think it really lives up to all of the hype. Hopefully Volume 2 is a bit better and gives a better sense of what the story is going to be going forward. I do have a strong sense that Snyder and Soule have a story that they're wanting to tell here, and that there is definitely a direction that they are heading, but they're not really making that well known to the reader. And as I mentioned earlier, that mystery may be important to the story, but for me, it makes it kind of difficult to get attached to it. So hopefully they pull back that mystery a bit in Volume 2, even if only a little, just to give me more of a sense of solid footing and give me an idea of kind of where the story is headed. So I'd say if you can get the first volume at a decent price, it's worth checking out, but maybe temper your expectations a little bit. I am looking forward to Volume 2, and whenever that comes out, I will definitely be reading it, and I will review it here for you all. And if you've read the book, please leave a comment and let me know what you thought. Does it live up to the hype for you, or were you hoping for maybe a little bit more? I look forward to hearing your thoughts. And until next time, this is Uncle Joel saying, stay tangible.